Welcome back to the Upside Down Health Podcast. Today's episode is number 10. My guest is Jamie Sangster. Jamie is a breathwork connoisseur. He's an ATG online coach. He recently just started a business in the nutrition universe and industry, and he's apparently an engineer who works full time. He's got a lot of hidden talents, a lot of hidden wisdom. He's been learning from many mentors for a long time, it seems like. So we're going to learn a lot from him today, and I'm excited to have him on. So, Jamie, thanks for being here.
Nah, thank you, Max. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to jump on and start sharing a bit of this work that I'm up to. Sometimes I can find myself just, crawling back into the corner and like things can be overwhelming, but you just got to zoom out, take a look at the big picture and see where you've come from and where you're going, and just value the things that you value in life and take action accordingly. And yeah, I look forward to seeing where this conversation goes.
I think this message is gonna be great. We'll start you off with a super easy one, right? So this is a good question I just thought of the other day. Imagine you've just received the news you're gonna die today. Somehow your entire life is gonna be erased, nothing to show for your existence, except you can leave a 1-minute audio message to serve as your footprint on the planet. What do you say to people?
It's pretty confronting actually. Like if you if you could leave a 1-minute message for the whole world, like what would it be? So I think where would you start? So live into possibility. Like you are bigger than you know yourself truly to be. Every single person is. And the world is rapidly transforming and becoming like bigger, faster, stronger, and more scary. And I think it's easy to be able to get sucked into this way of living, like the normal life, and you basically just get dragged along for a ride. And along with this, like you create story, and more than likely you're going to have a negative attachment to that story that you create. And it basically leaves you with no opportunity to be able to make a difference. So my recommendations for this 60 seconds is live a mad life. And mad being MAD, standing for make a difference. And just know that you are in control. And if for 1 minute you feel out of control, just simply observe the next breath that you take. And get to know others. And to be able to get to know others, I think you need to be able to get to know yourself first. Authentically, unapologetically, and open-hearted. And when you know yourself, you can then have the capability and capacity to be able to get to know another and live mad.
Wow, that was amazing. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Does the mad thing have anything to do with like just being super mad in terms of like adventurous and chasing? Is that like the analogy there, or is that not?
Yes, so mad, like it's really, really cool. It's something that I actually got from my wife. I'd never really put the 3 letters together, but MAD like literally stands for make our difference, like, and that's mad. And I think without going too woo-woo, like we're literally, like that's why we're on the planet. Like it's about connection, it's about community, and in community and connection, like if you're not making a difference, then I think you're never going to truly experience life to its fullest.
And doing these kind of things and actually stepping out of your comfort zone and making a difference is mad because not everyone's doing it.
Yeah, essentially, like you're getting dragged along for this ride and you're never getting the opportunity to be able to make a difference to another. Instead, you're just like waking up and you're living that lifestyle Whereas you're never really feeling empowered to be able to make a difference, but instead you're relying on someone to make a difference to you, yeah? So it's like you're always searching externally, looking for something to feel good or be good, or this will make me feel this way. I'll buy this car, I'll feel good, I'll feel rich. Like, and you're never actually truly like coming from the heart and being able to make a difference to another human.
So what's so important about starting with yourself? And you clearly said connecting is the big deal, but why do we have to connect with ourselves first?
Yeah, so where this stems from is like, if you don't truly know yourself and truly know your story or what you've created for yourself and get to know deep down what you're dealing with, like how are you going to have the capacity to be able to speak to others, to be able to listen, to be able to create a safe space in which someone's willing to be able to open up, to be able to share. So I think until you actually get to know yourself, like, you're not going to be in a position to be able to get to know anyone else.
I think that message is amazing, and it sums up what you're trying to get across to people perfectly. You know, don't buy into the story that you're
Yeah.
telling yourself, right? And be mad. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into breath work. So what's so important about the breath? Why, why have you been so obsessed with it for however long you have been?
Yeah, it's it's funny. Hey, every time I sit down and I lead some sort of breathwork class, I kind of start in the same way. Like, people are like, why breath? Like, why am I here? Well, like, it's not breath itself that's important. Like, we do it 12 to 25,000 times a day, like unconsciously. We breathe that many times. And often we can forget about one single breath that we take. And it's not the breath itself, it's how we breathe that really matters. And that's why I've fallen in love with it. So, like, how we breathe means that, like, within every single breath, like, our breath controls our heart, and our heart controls our brain, and our brain controls our actions. So our breath is literally like a control. So it, like, can switch on and off how you feel, how you act, and how your nervous system operates. So, like, how do you rest? How do you digest? How do you love? How do you feel anger, hatred? How do you sleep? And this can all basically be impacted by how we breathe. So as you breathe in your next breath, just observe, like, are you breathing in through your nose? Are you breathing in through your mouth? Are you breathing in through your chest? Are you breathing in through your stomach? And how you do this impacts you, like, physiologically. And then that impacts the way that you feel and the way that you think. So how you breathe through the day is how you breathe at night. And if you can't functionally breathe properly at rest through the day, how can you sleep? Then how do you recover? If you're not recovered, how do you think? If you can't think, you put yourself into a state of stress, anxiety, depression, high heart rates. The mind's over here and the heart's somewhere else. Like, they go in different directions. And although breathing is unconscious action, we can bring conscious awareness to it through a formal practice. So whether that be 3 or 5 minutes a day, or it means that you're dedicating, like, hours a day to this stuff formally, so then we can impact the informal practice. So it's like training, yeah? So we go to the gym and we get stronger, so then we can live a better life outside. Or we specifically eat down, specifically sit down for the family, and we provide them with healthy food so we can live a better life. It's like you sit down and you consciously bring awareness to the breath, and then that impacts how you breathe through the day for the rest of your life, which then balances out the nervous system. So there's like 3 key things here, and that's the chemistry, the cadence, and the capacity. So the chemistry balances the levels of the pH levels in the blood. So whether like you're alkaline or whether like you're very acidic. The cadence is like how many times do we breathe a day? How fast do we breathe? And then the cadence is the mechanical aspect. So is it the nose? Is it the mouth? Is it the upper chest? Is it the diaphragm? And once we learn how to control each one of these 3 aspects, then we've learned how to breathe properly, which means that we can change our state in a matter of seconds. And the best thing about the breath is like, it's your anchor, like it follows you everywhere. And you have to pay absolutely nothing for the breath. And it's there every second of the day, and it's fucking free. And to know that like you can 1 minute be like really down and out. And this happens to everyone, unless you're some super saiyan. But like you can literally change your state within like 30 seconds. And to me, like, what more do you want in life? You know, like you are in control. Like rather than being swept away and stressed by everything, like you have the remote control to your body, and it's right here underneath your nose. And it's just breathe in and breathe out.
Wow.
So that's why breath work to me like is just so important, you know.
That might have been the best explanation of the breath I've ever listened to from anybody online, even the world famous guys. That sums it up. You just nailed it on the head with the. It sounds like it's basically that the breath is this tool that we all have that's sitting right, literally underneath our nose, and
yeah, man,
it can have so many dramatic effects on our body, on our mind, chemistry, all of these things, and yet none of us are thinking about it. At least some of us aren't. But you've actually spent some time with the Australia's #1 breath coach, apparently. I believe I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Johannes Egberts. But so before we dive too deep into giving everybody answers of how they can take this vast knowledge of yours and apply it, let's dive into how you got here and how did you learn all this stuff from, like, what is that experience with the mentor done for you?
Yeah, so Johannes has been like absolutely amazing, I guess. So I guess I'll tell you a little story about like how I actually got here, okay? And why Johannes has been my mentor. So essentially, I guess the reason why I call it a story is usually a story is something that is like make-believe and not true. And the story I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to not believe me. You might think that it's not true, right? And that's because like literally the person who I am today is someone that you probably wouldn't recognize some years ago. And like not even I recognize the person that sits here some days. And like years ago, I was overweight. I was in pain. Like there was not a real distinguishment from my jaw, like to my neck. My teeth pointed in different directions. They were like here, there, and everywhere. Like I couldn't really sleep. I was stressed. I was sick actually. And like I was pretty angry. Like I had a very short fuse. and I had escapes to be able to live the life that I wanted to live. So those escapes like included things like drugs and alcohol. And at the time, like just totally unaware of what I was escaping. But I knew that it made me feel good. And at the time, like I moved down to live with my wife and moved to Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, and can get quite cold here. And it got to the point like where my fingers would swell up to the size of 2 fingers and I couldn't bend them. And my hands were absolutely freezing. Like, and I was working outside at the time. And it's what they refer to as like Raynaud's phenomenon. And basically it's like the struggle to be able to get blood flow to the fingers or to the extremities, I should say. And so when I moved here, I actually started on a bit of a health journey to become a PT, to step outside the comfort zone and build my ability to be able to communicate and have conversations with people, but also be able to get people in shape to be able to live a better life. And I wanted to share that with the world. And basically, like, I trained hard, I studied hard, I was fit, like extremely fit. If only you would have seen, like, I was a weapon. In fact, like, I was the fittest I had ever been. And like, I looked good and the 6-packs were there and like everything was going well. And that was my visualization at the time of what health was, right? It was just about looking good. And I was always out to be the best version of myself. And this is what I seen as the best version. But I still hadn't discovered breathing. And all of a sudden, I guess this is where one day I found myself in a field and I was feeling higher than I'd ever felt before. Higher than any mountain I've ever climbed, put it that way. And why did I feel this way? This was after 60 seconds of doing this crazy breathwork technique from a guy who you may have heard of before. And his name's Wim Hof, the crazy Iceman. And I literally just found him one day on YouTube. I was looking for an escape, like I was tired, I was anxious. And I was like, I'm going to go and try this shit. So I went and sat in the field, and after 60 seconds, like, I was seeing stars. And I was like, what the fuck has just happened to me? And this was the shift. Like, this is where I learned that there was a connection between the nervous system and the breath and the body and the mind. And I was like, I've literally just taken myself like off to another planet with no drugs and literally the breath. And this is like, fuck, all right. The breath is like my remote control to my body, and I can change shit and feel like lit up by this. And I was like, wow, like, I'm hooked on this. So essentially I've done it every single day. And one of the big key takeaway here is when you do stuff every single day, like, it can wear off if you don't value it properly. And like, this breathwork technique got me really, really excited. And I started doing it every single day, but then it like just basically lost its effect and it wasn't working. And it started as an escape, and I was like, oh, sick. Like, I can actually escape how I feel by just doing this breath work again now. But there has to be another way of doing it. So like, I'd heard of yoga, I'd heard of meditation. I'd been exposed to some pretty cool shit with polyvagal theory and the strong fit guys. And what I learned was basically like, I could, even the way that I was training people, I could essentially use certain breathing patterns to be able to send my clients home in a different state. So like, for example, like if I was training them in the morning, like, use certain ways of breathing and training to be able to send them to work like on a high and like happy. Or like if I was training them at night, like I could send them home like in a state in which they could love their family. And so basically I was like, fuck, how do I like integrate this stuff? Like there has to be a way to be able to, like, surely it's not just Wim Hof, or surely it's not just polyvagal. Like there has to be a way in which I can bring it all together. And that's where I met Johannes. And he's a fucking phenomenal dude. Like he's literally my age, and like the things that I see him do and the story that he has, like, just inspires me. And so this took me to the mountains on a retreat, and fucking found myself like scaling Mount Kosciuszko in my underwear only, and taking a pickaxe like down to frozen over lakes and swimming, and like getting in there for the morning. Like there wasn't hot showers. Like there was literally, we're going swimming in the lakes. You're not allowed to bring your shoes. Fuck, like it was painful, and there was tears. Like all the excuses come racing back to me that weekend. And the one thing that could like just bring me some peace at the time was literally just taking the monkey mind away and just breathing. Literally just breathing. And this experience, like, basically just reassured me that breath is life. And I guess since then, Johannes, he's built Breathless, which is now like probably the fastest and Australia's #1 leading breathwork like academy, I guess you could say. And I don't think there is another one. And what's really fucking cool about this is that it's built by like scientific evidence. At the same time, you get to practice and become a master of your own breath. And what he's doing is actually teaching you a whole variety of different methods and coaching you to become a breathwork coach and integrating all of these different methods. So like you've got Oxygen Advantage, you've got Big you've got Wim Hof. And like I said before, you can get stuck on one, and I don't know of anyone that integrates all of them together. And this is what Johannes does amazingly, and what he calls Breathless now. So he's taken me under his wing, and I've essentially, like, the last 18 months to 2 years, like, is where I've seen the biggest shift, like through my performance, my mental clarity, the way that I think, my sleep, everything has just changed and fundamentally been like impacted by this breathing. So where we started at the story at the start, where I said you wouldn't recognize the person. So like, that's because now when I sit here, like, I look healthy and I look fit. But the most important thing is, like, I feel healthy and I feel fit and I feel clear. Like I can think, like I can perform, I can go to work. Like I can work basically the capacity of 2 fucking full-time jobs. Like, and many people will tell you you're crazy, but like, it's simply because I apply myself and I have structures in place to allow me to be able to think and feel the way that I do. So that's basically what Johannes's mentoring has opened up for me, like, in my life, which like there's no real words on like what I can say more past, like, that's the power of the breath, really. Yeah.
It's quite obvious as a listener, and for me personally, listening to you speak, you have a calm vibe to you. You sound in control of your words. You're not anxious. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you own your story, and I don't think you're crazy. But like, just listening to you, you could tell. Okay, this has clearly had a massive impact on you, and I think it's ironic that you bring up Wim Hof, because almost everybody I've talked to, that's how they got introduced to breathing, and now there's all these amazing people talking about the breath. And so Wim has just had a massive impact on the world. I mean, just imagine that. And personally,
Yeah,
I had
so
the
grateful.
same story as you, pretty
Yeah.
much. It's funny,
Yeah.
just sitting at my desk one night, did a Wim Hof session, and I was like, oh my God. So if
Yeah.
anybody's listening to this and has never done Wim Hof, go do it right now. Pause the video. I'll leave a link in the description to a tutorial, but
And just go
okay,
send it.
send it and you're never going to regret it. Now, something that's coming up for me is I know you have all these different techniques. I think it would be really cool if me and you and anybody who's listening to this can do a technique right now. Just take a little shortcut, 3 to 5 minutes or whatever, do a little session of something, and then finish off the podcast after that. Can we do something like that, or is that too much?
Yeah, of course. I'm more than happy to run through a little something today to be able to basically just teach us. I'll give us the tool to be able to basically assess and deal with stress and build a resilience to stress. So how that comes about is basically we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out CO2. And what people refer to as CO2 is usually a waste gas. But CO2 isn't a waste gas. Like without CO2, we can't breathe. So if I ask you to just stop breathing right now, like probably within somewhere between 15 to 30 seconds, you're more than likely going to get this urge to breathe. And what that is a buildup of CO2 within the body. And basically when that buildup of CO2 occurs, something in the body goes, all right, I've got to breathe now. So I see CO2 as the most powerful thing that we can have. But when we become anxious, when we become stressed, when life becomes out of control, our tolerance to CO2 can go down. So all of a sudden, when a stressful scenario occurs, increase in heart rate, increase in breath, it's like hyperventilation. So what I'm going to teach you is basically you're going to consciously give yourself like a teaspoon of air hunger. So you're going to teach yourself to be able to deal with a certain level of CO2 buildup in the blood. And that'll then make you more resilient. And when these stressful scenarios occur, whether that be someone pull out on you, whether that be a frustrating work email, whatever it may be, like your body's then going to be familiar with this feeling and this feeling to breathe. And it's going to go, okay, like I'm safe. And literally like in 3 to 5 minutes a day, like if you do this, like you're going to build your tolerance to CO2 and be able to take on your day better and feel better. Because, yeah, but I'm more than happy to run through that now, or we can finish the session with it.
Yeah, that's it's up to you, really.
Yeah, so as we sit here, let's make this real woo-woo. We'll even close the eyes. So as we sit here, I just want you to just close the eyes, and I just want you to observe the next breath that comes in through the body. And I just don't want you to hold any judgment to it at this stage. And I want you to close the mouth, and I want you to start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And as you breathe, notice the cold air that travels in through the nose and the warm air that travels out through the nose. You'll probably notice that your mind's going to start wandering. And that's fine. I just want you to observe that and just bring it back to the breath. Traveling in and out through the nose. Once we become aware of that breath, we can stay anchored to it. Fully conscious and fully present. What we're going to do is reduce the amount that we breathe by about 50%. So the full breath in and the full breath out. And on the next inhale, I want you to breathe around 50% of your normal volume. Continuing to keep this reduced breathing volume, you're going to start to feel a slight hunger for air. This is valuable feedback. And I just want you to know that you are safe and you're creating a teaspoon of air hunger to build CO2 within the blood. When we build CO2, we're going to become more tolerant to stress. We're going to have more resilience, and we're going to be able to respond to scenarios and not just react. So again, if that mind's wandering, just bring it back to the breath. Creating a teaspoon of air hunger. And how that's going to feel is like you're just going to want to breathe just that little bit more. That's okay. There's no need. You're in control. So as we sit here and the tolerance for CO2 is building, you're going to start to feel warmth within the fingers, the toes. That's our blood vessels dilating. Doing this for as short as 3 to 5 minutes a day can be super impactful. As we take 12 to 25,000 breaths a day, just becoming conscious of our breathing patterns is one of the most powerful things that we can do. On the next exhale, I'm just going to ask that you bring the breath back to its natural breathing pattern and bring yourself back to the number one podcast.
Man, that was epic. Yeah.
So that's just like literally all you're doing there is just reducing the breathing volume by about 50% to be able to feel that teaspoon of air hunger. And it's simple and available to anyone. And as you learn to do that, you would have noticed like there was a state of relaxation because you've reduced the breathing volume. And that affects the autonomic nervous system, right? So that puts us into a state of like parasympathetic. So that means just rest and digest. And we're consciously choosing to give the body a certain level of stress.
So would you recommend doing that in the mornings, at night, or is there certain time?
Yeah. So I think a great little protocol would be 3 times a day, right? Especially like living the life that we live. So we wake up pretty hectic, frantically getting ready for the day. You go and take on your day, come home, cook dinner or breakfast if you're a faster. Cook dinner, try and get to bed, try and get some rest. So it's a great way to be able to 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at lunchtime, go out, get some vitamin D, 5 minutes to breathe. When you get home, before you cook dinner, 5 minutes to breathe. going to bring you back down. It's going to allow you to love. It's going to allow you to eat. It's going to allow you to digest. And it's going to allow you to sleep better.
Wow. I could see how spacing it out would be pretty powerful, because it's almost like if you said it's the anchor, then it's kind of anchoring you down over and over and over.
Yeah. So some of the most scientific research that there is out there as far as protocols go is called 365. And what that means is 3 times a day, sit down and breathe 6 breaths a minute for 5 minutes. So that's where you get 365, 3 times a day, 6 breaths a minute for 5 minutes.
Now, if you couldn't get 6 breaths, say you just don't have the capacity for that, is that something you build up to?
Yeah, so that could mean, like, for example, like people who are very anxious or feel feelings of suffocation, depression, things like that. If your breath is 1 in and 1 out, just simply become aware of the breath and just try to reduce it just that little bit. Keep it simple. And there's no judgment there. Don't hold judgment to that. Becoming aware of one breath is one step closer than becoming aware of no breath and just simply continuing to live the life that you live.
So you mentioned that the breath, the way we breathe, affects how we breathe all day. So if we're doing these things, it's actually going to start to impact our automatic breathing?
Yeah, correct. So that's where I referred to as like an informal and a formal practice. So if we can take those little 5-minute blocks through the day and purposefully bring our attention to our breath and bring our body's nervous system down into the rest and digest mode, where we can love and we can connect and we can feel and we can eat, then if we can do that 3 times a day, then we're more than likely going to impact the other 23.75 hours a day, because we've brought the nervous system down into this state. So I think the more that you do it, the more that it impacts the unconscious breathing. So that is a formal practice. You can also then apply that into performance. For example, if you're into training, there's many different protocols we can do for that. You can apply breath holds to your training practice. You can bring your nervous system down into rest and digest whilst you're actually fucking training. So it all comes down to the why as well. Why are you doing this? What would be the outcome? For me, it started with small practices, and it's basically what I have come across now is this integrative approach of there's a different breath for every single part of the day. I wake up and I breathe in a certain way. I do a certain breath flow. When I go and train, depending on what I want to achieve, I breathe in a certain way. I breathe to be able to warm up. When I'm going for a 1 rep max, or I want to go all out, it's like you're chasing the fucking bear. It's fight or flight. Yeah. But then I know how to come back down. And I think that's where the key is, being able to use different methods. And that's all a formal approach. So that's all dedicated training, which impacts the other parts of your day in which you're not consciously attached to the breath. You don't want to be sitting there all day in, out, in, out. Yeah, it's just not going to fucking work. Yeah. So, and it takes the woo-woo away from it, right? Breathing's not sexy. So I think, being able to develop a practice in which is going to apply to the other parts of your day is super, super important. I think I went a bit off track there, But
Well, since you
yeah.
did, what can you share like one tool that you use for amping yourself up, and then one you use for cooling yourself down?
Yeah, so I guess to be able to amp myself up or create energy, that would definitely be in relation to similar to the Wim Hof stuff. So being able to increase sympathetic drive by breathing more. And that's called like what you want to call like superventilation, hyperventilation, whatever it may be. And how that would look would be what I'm doing there is consciously breathing all I can in and then just letting it go. And what I'm then doing is basically changing the levels in the blood. So I'm increasing the oxygen that comes in by, and then decreasing the CO2. So I'm basically overriding the body there. So there's more oxygen in the blood and I'm blowing off all the CO2. All right. Which then gives me this feeling of like that high. You're like, oh, fuck, this is really, really cool. And that's because there's no CO2 in the blood. You've essentially like tricked the body into like, hey, like, where's all the CO2? I don't need to breathe anymore. Like, I'm feeling good. But the key there is the consciousness breathing. Yeah. So you can consciously put yourself into that state. You're going to feel very, very good, but you also need to be able to bring yourself down. And how I would do that is through a simple heart coherence, heart and brain coherence. So what that is basically doing is putting yourself into a physiological state in which you synchronize the brain waves and the heart waves by a simple 6 breaths per minute. That's how I try to finish every practice. 6 breaths per minute. So that's 5 on the in and 5 on the out. And basically what that does is sync your brain waves to your heart rate. And then that impacts your digestion, impacts the way that you feel, impacts your state. So like whether you're sympathetic or parasympathetic. And then one of the fucking massive ones here is the vagal tone. So vagal tone, like being able to like put yourself into like a state of connection, a state of love, being able to slow the heart rate and basically put you in coherence with the heart and the brain. Like, and just super, super important. And that's the one practice that I use. So try not to overcomplicate shit as always. Like just keep things as simple as possible. So if we refer back to what I said before, that 3-6-5 method, that's it. So yeah, 6 breaths a minute,
Simple
5 in and 5 out. Yeah. And like, yeah, if you really struggle to be able to do that, like maybe throw some tunes on. Like just allow yourself to breathe like with some music. Because if you're just sitting there and it's quiet, then you're more than likely going to be having a wandering mind as well.
So you said that the breath leads us to being able to control the heart, and then the heart being able to control the brain. And that's what this heart coherence, the head and the heart coherence is?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so that's there is what we refer to as head and heart coherence. Which is synchronizing the brain waves and the heart rate, or the heartbeat. So
and that's like
being
a
able
natural
to
state, kind of like that's what we should be if we weren't so anxious.
Yeah, well, I guess like there's no should or shouldn't here.
Okay.
But I guess what this really does is when we consciously slow down our heart rate and we learn to be able to connect the heart and the brain, we can, like that impacts the nervous system, right? We want to live more life. If we call this the sympathetic and this the parasympathetic, if we're living unconsciously and breathing a lot more and in states of stress and anxiety and things, then like we're going to live a shorter life. We want to be able to bring ourselves back down to the parasympathetic as much as we can. Yeah. So basically, like, you're not burning the candle at both ends, right? So an interesting thing like that Japanese samurai used to say was like, the person who breathes the least amount of breaths lives the longest. So it's like, how much time can you give to breathing less? Like, which I thought was really fucking cool.
Yeah, you could almost say we have like what if we have like a limit of how many breaths we have, and
Yeah.
the less
Well,
you breathe, the longer you're going to
yeah,
go.
there is like some research out there. They think that we only have a certain amount of breaths like to be able to take in our life. And I'm like, fuck, what if that's real? I might just stop now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe doing some more Wim Hof and taking a few minutes where you don't breathe at all. That might extend your
Yeah.
life another bit.
It's all about the balance, right? So it's like, if you want to send it up here, you better have the fucking ability to bring it back down here. Yeah.
Well, I like how simple your advice is, and how simple that practice was. It shouldn't be. I guess as Ben Patrick, Knees Over Toes guy says, right? The simpler things get, the closer we get to the truth. So, you know, to turn
Yeah.
these things around, the breath. It shouldn't have to be all these things. And obviously, like you're saying, you've learned so many tools, so many techniques for so many different situations, and
Mm.
there's no end to how much we can grow in our knowledge here. But like you said, to start off, it's not that complicated, right?
No, like, just literally simplify things. And we live in a complex world, right? And that's why the world is fucking great. Like, it's complex, there's many different variables, and it's like, sweet, like, we have so many options. But that also creates the monkey mind. So it always keeps us thinking, wanting to do different things. Just remove, what happens if you just remove the shit and start with one thing?
What's the
Like,
monkey mind?
so the monkey mind is the wandering mind. So, like, for example, like, what am I thinking of, like, outside of this conversation with Max? Like, what's next? What have I got to do at 7 o'clock tonight? You know, are you training and all of a sudden it's like you're thinking about what you got to do after training? What do you have to write? What do you have to record? Who do you have to work for? What bills do you got to pay? That's the monkey mind. And that's where I talk about the breath being the anchor. If you follow one breath from the start to the finish, then you're more than likely not going to be able to think of anything else whilst you do that.
So this breath is almost turning into a sort of meditation where you're focusing on one thing at a time. You're almost training your focus.
Yeah. 100%. Because whilst you're focused on that, you basically cut off like a certain part of the brain where you don't need to think about anything else.
Beautiful. Let's move on to nutrition a little bit, if you don't mind, because I know you've
Cool,
been
of
on
course.
the more animal-based side of eating, and I know you say that there is no dogma here. There's no right or wrong way of looking at this world. It's what works for you. But what has worked for you with this way of eating, and how has it changed how you perceive life, the world, and nutrition at large?
Yeah, cool. So I guess for me, 2 years ago, I found Keegan Smith, and he was running a thing called Fat to Free, which was basically carnivore. at the time, or heavily meat-based. And what actually attracted me to this was like, it was fucking weird. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I want to try this. But the reason why I wanted to try it was like, I'd personally confronted and had been dealing with a whole host of health problems for like many, many years. And as I mentioned earlier, like obesity had things like Raynaud's, hemochromatosis, and basically like I was experiencing non-existent testosterone levels. And how that showed up in my life was like, it led to disordered eating patterns. Like, I had bad relationships with food. And like, I essentially just thought like life's just happening to me and I can't, like, how am I gonna fix this through food? I tried everything, like smashed down all the $4 chicken breasts and broccoli, like fucking, you name it, like vegan, vegetarian, tried it all. And like essentially it was just little cycles, and then on to the next one and on to the next one. And I was like, fuck, like surely you can't just eat meat. Like, you need to be able to eat your veggies, you need to be able to do this, you need to be able to do that, as everyone else is. And I guess that's like, I just thought like, this is kind of like my last option. So diving into that and starting to eat like just literally meat, like 1 to 1.5 kilograms a day of steak. Like, it's fucking great. But like, and what I started to see was like a significant difference, like in my health. Like, my energy was heaps more, started to think clearer. Like, all these pains that I was getting in my shoulders, in my knees, like I was having injections and stuff. And like all of that soon started to disappear. And my testosterone levels like have now almost quadrupled. So like basically coming from like non-existent, not even capable of being able to have a fucking family, like, because I would have been incapable of like the physiological functions, you know, now to like tripling or quadrupling almost now testosterone levels. Like, I'm now capable of building a family and like being a father. And that to me is like what it's done, you know? And like, that's the power of it. Like I said before, like I don't really like to complicate shit. And what I like to do is basically like, I know that the scientific evidence is there, and that's perfectly fine. And I love to be able to dive into that. But I also love being able to break that down and just make it as simple as possible. And that's what I've done with the carnivore diet. Like, just put no more meaning to it apart from like, I believe the best knowledge is experience. And I've experienced the change in my body, and I've now shared that with others and been able to allow them to experience this as well. And how that's shifted my perception on the world is similar to what I said before. Like, we complicate everything in the world. It's very complex, which makes it very valuable. And I think once we remove all the variables and we just start at ground zero, there's nothing but truth. Like, there's nowhere to hide. There's no time for excuses and all the fucking story that goes along with it. It's like you said before, like with Ben Patrick, like we start at the ground up. You start with the toes, like you start with the feet. Then you move to the ankles. Then you move to the knees. Then you move to the hips, like, and so on. Like, it's ground up approach. When we remove all the hundreds of thousands of different foods that we have options to when we walk through the fucking supermarket, and we just start with meat, Like, there's nowhere to hide in that. And after a week, like, of eating meat or anything from nose to tail in the animal, like, tell me how you feel. And I'm not saying that you have to do that, but like, that's an approach of like removing all the shit that we have in our lives and just starting with something and focusing on one thing. So that's basically like how it shifted my perception of the world. Like, stop taking these complex systems and trying to make it more complex by adding more shit. Remove some stuff and start from there.
So when you take everything away, not necessarily just with diet, but in life,
Yeah.
you can have a better sense of clarity about who you are and what your state actually is and what your problems are almost.
Yeah, it's like you create so much attachment to certain things. Like, even if I tell you, oh, what coffee's like the biggest thing that's drunk in the world these days, and I guarantee you, if you tell 99% of people that you're going to take their coffee away, like, it's going to be fisticuffs. Like, there's an attachment to it. It's the same as food. Like, if you tell someone to fast for 24 to 48 to 72 hours, like, you're just going to get a weird look and they're just going to go, not a chance. Like, I need to eat breakfast. And then the question is, well, you still can't eat breakfast, because if you break down breakfast, it means break fast. So just whenever you eat your next meal is breakfast. I don't care what time it is, it's still breakfast.
I think I realized that a couple of years ago. I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so just being able to like abstain from something for a certain period of time can remove the attachment to it. And I think that's like one of the most super powerful tools that I've ever come across, you know.
If you
and then you realize, like,
go ahead.
You realize, like, do I need this in my life or not? And more than likely not, like, you're probably not going to add stuff back in.
In diet, you're saying?
Anything. Like, anything that you try. Like, for example, like, that's how you end up eating less meals a day. So, like, if you first start fasting, if you finish a 72-hour fast, where that's taken your mind is somewhere different. Like, you've gone from eating 5 to 6 meals a day because, like, you have to eat on a fucking time schedule to, no, like, I've just literally accomplished 3 days without one meal. This changes your way of being. It's like, I've just removed all the veggies out of my diet. Oh, and I feel mad. Sweet, maybe I don't need vegetables. Yes, I'm sure there's thousands and thousands of books that tell you that you do. But hey, like, I feel fucking pretty good. And my blood tests are telling me that I look pretty good as well. So, like, knowledge is through personal experience, and every single human's going to be different. Yeah.
I love that approach.
Yeah.
I love it. And you love this so much that you started a company now. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So basically, like, when I started, I was the crazy person, right? So when you're eating norm, you're eating packets of chips, you're eating donuts and all that kind of stuff. Like, all's good. You start eating meat and people tell you you're fucking crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. 12 months later, like, all right, sweet. You've reversed all of your health problems. Bloods are looking good and you're looking better. Like, can you tell me something about this? It's like, no problem. Like, I'm more than willing to share this with you. And this is what got the attention of others around me. It's like, wow, can you tell me a little bit more about this? Like, I've seen all this amazing food that you've been eating. And it's like, sure thing, like, more and more questions. Where do you get your meat from? like, that steak looks amazing. Where are you getting that from? Can you tell me a little bit more of like how I can eat more meat? Surely I can't just eat more meat. I need more vegetables. Like, all these questions just kept coming and coming and coming. And I was like, fuck, like, how do I share this? Like, there's so much complex information that I've had to work through. So what I done was what I've spoken about before, and essentially build a business on being able to break down science and make information as simple and digestible as possible. And what that business does and what it's called is Meeting You. So Meeting You name is literally what it is. It's meeting every human where they are at. So inclusion and not exclusion. No matter what background, what color, what you believe in, like, I want to be able to meet you somewhere. And the way I spell meat is M-E-A-T, like for a steak. Yeah. And what I want to do with my business is be able to educate people on the benefits of animal-based proteins in the diet in the most simple and digestible way possible. So like, if I wasn't someone who dug in and wanted to better myself, like, I would have struggled to find this information. Like 9 out of 10 people will still say, like, surely you can't eat meat. So it's clear that like there's a lack in the information that's out there now and where the truth lies. And I feel a responsibility to be able to fill that gap. And so I want to be able to educate people there. And once people are educated and they start to experience these differences in their lives and how good it can make them feel, what I also do is supply the inwards goods. And the inwards goods is the food. So supplying grass-fed and finished meats, free range, non-free range, like chicken and pork as well. So what I really value is understanding that everyone is different. Not everyone's in a position to be able to afford the highest quality meat. And that's fine. I totally respect that. But where I want to start is by valuing human health first, and then being able to value the animal and being able to value the environment. But to be able to value the animal and the environment, first you must respect yourself. And that starts by being good to yourself, by filling the body with something that's going to make you feel energetic. And through my experience and those around me experience and those who have influenced me, that means a heavily meat-based diet. It doesn't mean that you're only eating steaks. Like, eat what makes you feel good. And this is what has made thousands and thousands and thousands of people feel good. So that's where we spoke about, like, there's no wrong or right. It's just like, this is built by experience. Yeah.
Though it feels like a life hack to have ATG training and carnivore at the same time.
Oh man, it's like the proof's in the pudding. Like, you just got to look at this community that is like just growing and growing and growing. And that's just from people starting to share the work. And it's phenomenal, you know, like, it's all about longevity. Like, how the fuck do you want to feel and look like when you're 70? Like, age is often referred to as like this thing where there's like ill health and, you know, all these different things that people like just refer to with age. And like, it doesn't have to be that way. And we have the tools to be able to share and to be able to change the way you're going to be when you're 70. And like, to me, like, that's just gold. That's why I'm so passionate about this stuff. And that's why I want to share it. And that's why sometimes it can feel like you're all over the place. As far as like, oh, like, I thought you'd done movement. Now you do nutrition. Now you do breath. Like, well, fuck, I have the tools to be able to like transform your life in every single aspect. So why wouldn't you want to take some of that on? Just take a little bit and try it. And then if you want a little bit more, like I can offer you a little bit more as well. And so can everyone else in the community. Like, it's fucking phenomenal.
Well, the world likes to put people in boxes. So when you're a three-man thing, they're like, "What is this guy?" They want you to be one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, no, not anymore. Like, I lived as one thing and look where I was. Like, you know, stressed, anxious, sore, fucking injections. The amount of thousands and hundreds of dollars I've spent on medical bills. Like, and now I don't need to spend that because I have the tools.
What tools do you use for mental clarity and bringing yourself to the present moment? Is it just the breath, or have you messed around with things like journaling, meditation, other tools like that?
Yeah, sweet. So, obviously, like, I've just chewed everyone's ear off for the past 90 minutes on breathing. So that's quite clear that brings me clarity. Yeah.
I wouldn't say
And it brings me presence. So,
I
some
think it was
other
more like
practices.
peace into the ears.
Yeah.
If anybody actually did that meditation, you sounded like a professional guided meditator. So it was
um,
very peaceful. So I wouldn't don't talk
I'm
yourself down
glad.
there.
So essentially how I wake up, is with a small group of us. Like, basically we just jump online and take it in turns, and we all develop a breath flow in the morning. So wake up 5 o'clock, work through 20 to 30 minutes of breath work, and then I'll grab out a journal. Basically just write down whatever pops up after that breath work, you know, because we dig into the body and just things pop up. And I think one of the most useful things we can do is just write it down instead of storing it in the body. Like, let it go, get it out of the body. Don't allow it an opportunity to be able to store within, to be able to create story. Like, write it down, write the story. So I love to be able to journal and basically, like, write down a few affirmations. So just whatever comes up. Like, it doesn't have to look a certain way. Just write a couple of lines. I'll start with I will, and then just keep writing I will, I will, I will. So whatever that may be. So it may be like, I will connect, I will contribute, I will love. And then basically until I run out of words. And that's just how I feel. And then I'll write down I am. And that's generally a reflection on myself. So, like, I am love, I am connection, I am support, I am energy, I am committed. And basically do that again until I run out of words. And that's a great way that I like to be able to journal for the day, and then set up things that I'm going to do in that day. I find if you write down what you got to do in the day, that removes you having to think about, like, you're basically living life on the run. So being able to write it down removes the even need to be able to think about it later on. So if you've got it in front of you, you don't even have to think about it. So that allows me to be more conscious with people. And then another thing I like to be able to do for mental clarity is just show appreciation to people. So actually authentically, like, look someone in the eyes. Just try this. Like, actually authentically just look someone in the eyes and tell them what you're grateful for within them. Just do it to one person a day and see, like, what difference that makes. And when you tell someone you're grateful and you see how that changes their way of being, like, it'll change your life. So that allows me to be present with people, because it allows people a safe space to be able to interact with you, which removes any unwanted thought patterns that may be going on. And I think one of the biggest things in the growing world is also removing technology for certain periods. So if you've got like a dedicated Sunday dinner or something with the family, like don't take the phone. It can be extremely hard, especially when online businesses and stuff are like such a big part of our life now. I think that can be really, really hard, but super, super powerful. So yeah, showing gratitude to yourself, showing gratitude to others, and just actually being in others' presence with no digital technology would be my biggest go-tos.
Well, I'm very grateful for you, Jamie. I'm very grateful that
My
you
man.
are sharing your vulnerabilities openly and teaching your wisdom in all of these different worlds. And honestly, I love speaking to people like you because when I listen to you, I'm more conscious of my breath. And when I listen to you, I'm more conscious of my emotional state and my mental clarity. And it's amazing to be in contact with people like you. So, and doing this actually does make me feel really good by telling you this. So, everybody,
Yeah,
go tell somebody today.
yeah, and I'm grateful for you. Like over this past 90 minutes we've been on here, like you've lit me up.
Has it been
Like
90
you've raised
minutes?
my awareness and consciousness. So thank you.
Wow, I appreciate that. It's all fun and love here now.
Yeah, that's it. This is the Woo Woo podcast.
I mean, honestly, when I was first told about gratitude, and now I've been doing this practice I call GAC. So it's gratitude, appreciation, care, and compassion every morning, every night.
Yeah, I love it.
Amazing. But when I first heard it, I was like, this is hippy dippy. It just sounds like, it sounds a little out there, but, emotional intelligence and realizing that you're actually in control of your emotions is a powerful, powerful thing.
Yeah, man. And also similar, like so much stuff can be woo woo and hippie. And I just come to a point one day and I just went, if this is hippie, I want to be a fucking hippie. Like this is mad. Yeah.
That's why this is called the Upside Down Health Podcast, because
Yeah.
I've realized that everything is upside down and everything that's good for me seems a little crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. Like all these crazy things. Like if I didn't do them, well then like I wouldn't be living the life that I live now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the very interesting things that you pointed out in some of your posts online is that you don't, and you've actually mentioned it tonight a few times, that there's no right or wrong. So,
Yeah.
uh, I'll hesitate here, and I don't want to say what's wrong with thinking right and wrong, but what's the problem with thinking in these terms?
Oh, all right. So this is like philosophical, I guess. Let's call it, hey. So this is my opinion is like the world is literally created in language. Like this podcast, everything we say is just language, and the world is created in language. And the life that we have lived so far has a story that we have also created in language, right? And depending on your experience, you're going to have a different attachment to what the language of right and wrong mean. And living with things being right or wrong is not empowering to the human to make decisions. And I guess if we're in a healthy enough state to be able to choose our actions just for what they are and not based on language, and especially the language of right and wrong, the world would be a different place. So, for example, how that would look would be like there's in nutrition, right? There's food, literally what goes in our mouth and what we eat. And we never ever look at it as food now. It's like there's the right thing to eat or the wrong thing to eat or the diet or the health kick. Like there's never just hey, this is food. And the same as movements, like there's a right and wrong way to be able to pick up your damn groceries. Like, that's outrageous to me. Like, why can't you just like move and go and spend time and play with your kids and pick up your groceries and just move in ways in which we were born to move, right? Thinking, there's no right or wrong way to think. Or what about if you didn't even have to think and you could just be? So I think there's a time and a place for everything to be able to occur, but it needs to occur by choice and like nothing more and nothing less than just choice and what is. As soon as we label it, then it becomes very subjective to the person's experience. And you need to be, like for me, what's important is creating environments in which people feel empowered to be able to live their best life. And empowerment is through choice.
It's very powerful. World is created in language. Everything. I'm stuck thinking about that concept alone because my inner philosopher is coming out.
Oh, my brain got fizzled for a very long time when I first heard that years ago, you know, and it really makes you think about every single word that comes out of your mouth.
What are we in control of?
What are we in control of? Thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions. So, how do we control it, Max?
The breath. Come on.
So, if the breath connects the heart to the brain and the brain to the heart, that affects what actions we take. And if you want to be in control of your life, you need to connect and take action.
Let's go. I'm pumped up now.
Let's get it.
And like you said, like thought after you finish your morning breathwork session, your thoughts that come to you are actually they're very interesting. You're accessing a different part of your mind. So people might not think of that, I guess, that this breathwork stuff actually can alter, what kind of thoughts you're having.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And there's no judgment in whatever's there. Just write it down, get it out. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap things up. I think we brought it all right back to what's really the most important thing here, and that's that the breath is this remote control that we have access to and that can dramatically change things for us. And Jamie shared another powerful tool with the animal-based eating. I personally have experienced what he's talking about, and I've only been doing it for about 5.5 or 6 months. But for anybody who has those health issues and is trying to find new ways, in our personal experience, we would say that it is something to look into, but make your own personal decisions. Jamie, I already told you how grateful I am for you, but I didn't know what to expect with this. We've never met before, and this was absolutely wonderful. You're such a inspiring person, and your level of calmness is so it's something I think I look up to heavily because I tend to be very rigid, and sometimes people say I come off as calm, but I'm also like tensed up. So if I could even reach half of your state, I would be pretty pleased, I think.
Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I just want to say a massive thanks for inviting me along today. Like, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to share share my experiences and the path that I've been on and the path that I'm going on, and that I'll continue to share for the world. And I'm very grateful that what I have shared has made an impact to you, and hopefully makes an impact to our listeners, even if it's just one little thing that they become aware of in their day that may positively impact. Like, then I've done my job in moving closer to a pain-free world. And I really, really respect and honor like what you're up to in your life, and the things that like you're committed to in making a difference, and hearing your journey and where you've come from and where you're going is phenomenal. And one of the coolest things is like we're on this journey together, right? And like together we can make a bigger difference.
That's mad.
Yeah, literally.
Where can people find you, Jamie?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me on Instagram. So that's through Supple Sangster. And if you're in Australia and interested in animal-based meat supplies or education, more than happy to be able to share and support you there. So that's through meetingyou.com, and they'd probably be the two main platforms. I can become a bit shit on Facebook and stuff like that. So, but watch this space specifically in Supple Sangster. That'll be diving out into YouTube channel and stuff like that soon. Some really, really big things coming for 2022 as I increase my education in technology space. I can create more programs, share more of what I have with the world. So yeah, really, really look forward to hearing and meeting from more of you.
I think it's ironic that, maybe not ironic, but it fits perfectly that the place to reach you is very simple. You don't have all these different webs of connectivity. So
Yeah,
it fits with your message. And I hope you got a lot out of this if you're listening. And I personally did. I know I'm going to be taking a lot of these things to heart, and going to be connecting with Jamie more online. So
sick.
thanks again for being here. We're going to have to do it again sometime. And yeah, don't forget
Absolutely.
to breathe. Don't forget to breathe today. Have a good one, Jamie.
Yeah, my pleasure, mate. Thank you.